joined us for a tour of two of our exemplar courses for observation. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself in the chat, that just lets us know where you're joining us from and what your role is at your institution. That would be much appreciated. And I'm going to be your friendly facilitator over in the chat, assisted by my colleague, Aline Slating. And we'll be available for any questions that come up as we go or any technical issues that you may have. Just to note, I have enabled captions for the recording, but if you would like to see those, you'll need to go down to the three dots that say more on your Zoom toolbar and show captions on your end. So again, thank you for joining us. I'm going to have my colleague Alexandra Pickett start us off with a little bit of an overview of this program.
Thanks, Erin. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm delighted, really, to introduce you to one of the most practical and I think inspiring resources that we have available through SUNY Online Teaching, and that's the Exemplar Online Courses for Observation program. This initiative was created to make excellent online course design visible and accessible to our SUNY faculty and instructional design communities. It's simple but powerful. We showcase examples of good online course design to let you see them in action. Each course you will see today has been nominated by their SUNY campus-based online instructional designer as a model of effective online teaching and learning. These nominations recognize courses that show strong alignment with the Oscar course quality rubric. And as most of you may know, this is SUNY's own evidence-based framework for quality and accessibility in online course design. So once nominated, the courses are reviewed and copied into the SUNY Online Brightspace digital learning environment and then carefully prepared for observation. So we work closely with the instructional designers and the faculty to prepare the courses for this program. The showcased courses are free of any student information, and each instructor has given explicit permission for their course to be shared as an exemplar. So when you access a course for observation, you're stepping into like a teaching museum of sorts. You can explore structure, navigation, interaction, the assessment strategies they use, and the instructor's personal teaching presence, all within the Brightspace DLE environment. SUNY campuses can choose three ways to provide faculty access to these exemplar courses within the DLE. You can do that through the Brightspace Discover tool, via home campus enrollment, or via automatic enrollment for all of the faculty on the campus or faculty and staff on the campus. Your campus DLE admin determines which access option is active for your institution. So if you're not sure how to get in, you can check with your campus instructional designer or your DLE admin, or find guidance through the SUNY Online Support portal. Access is limited to SUNY campuses participating in the shared DLE environment, but we make webinar recordings and program overviews public so that anyone can learn from the webinar showcase of the models and approaches presented. And we'll share links to those recordings later in the session, and you can always find them on our YouTube channel as well. And Erin and Aline will be posting links for that. So when you explore a course for observation, you'll notice that these are copies of the courses that originally were in the instances, the institutional instances. They're designed purely for observation and inspiration. Well, not designed, but they're posted there for your observation and inspiration. You'll have full access to course content and the structure, though not any protected or third-party tools, in case that occasionally occurs in some of these courses. You're encouraged to use what you see to adapt ideas, borrow approaches, and incorporate their best practices into your own online courses with attribution to the instructor and campus. We just ask that you acknowledge the instructor whose work you build on. Each course overview includes a sample attribution language, and so that it's easy to do that respectfully and transparently. And you'll find that within each of the courses in the course overview. So you might wonder what makes a course an exemplar. The courses in this program reflect the diversity and creativity of online teaching across SUNY, and they might demonstrate things like clear, consistent organization and navigation, a strong instructor presence and engagement, innovative learning activities or means of assessment, inclusive and learner-centered design practices, or perhaps unique approaches in disciplines where online design can be challenging, such as Studio Lab or STEM courses. Not every course checks every box, but each one offers something valuable to learn from a creative solution, a design strategy, or a distinctive teaching voice. Ultimately, this program is about community learning. It celebrates SUNY faculty excellence, strengthens design capacity across campuses, and gives every instructor, whether new to online teaching or highly experienced, the chance to see what's effective, humanized, and inclusive online teaching looks like in practice. It also provides instructional designers with a shared reference set to support faculty consultations and professional development, reinforcing SUNY Online Teaching's mission to provide evidence-based, practical, and scalable resources to our entire system. You are in for a treat today. We have two courses that will be showcased from SUNY Farmingdale. One is on biopsychology and the other one is on global art history. The full list of courses currently available span a range of disciplinary fields and institutional sectors, including political science, interior design, weight training, technical writing, word processing, and also early childhood education. Each instructor brings their own teaching presence, creativity, and voice to the online space. As you listen and watch this webinar presentation, I encourage you to notice how design decisions reflect each instructor's personality, pedagogical objectives and approaches, and how they balance the structure with flexibility, or how they bring interaction and care into their online learning environments. I want to thank you all for attending. We are very pleased to be here with you today, to have you spend your lunchtime with us, learning more about this wonderful program and these wonderful faculty whose courses are being showcased. Erin?
Thanks so much, Alex. So it's my pleasure to do a little bit of an introduction. So our first course is from Dr. Roshanak Keyghobadi, who is an assistant professor in the Visual Communications Department at Farmingdale State College. She teaches courses in graphic design, typography, histories of graphic design, and design thinking. She holds a doctoral degree in art and art education from Columbia University, along with an MFA in graphic design from Indiana University and a BFA in graphic design from the University of the Arts. She also studied visual communication at the University of Tehran's College of Fine Arts. Dr. Keyghobadi her work centers on contemporary design histories with a focus on global and underrepresented perspectives. She lectures widely, conducts research, and writes on digital design and visual culture. So welcome, Dr. Keyghobadi, and I will turn it over to you to share your course.
Thank you so much, Erin. I'm so glad to be here. Very glad to presenting Farmingdale State College as well. I have designed and created a global art history course and have been teaching it in person, but I thought that I should also offer it to my students online. So in 2023, I applied for distance learning training at our college to develop the course into an online class. So I started working with Kathy Mitra, the instructional designer at our college, and we had several meetings and training sessions and until the final review. And she really, really helped me to make the course accessible to my students. That was really one of the important goals that I had. So since then, I have not tested the online format. I've been teaching it in person, but all the components that I introduced to you are, I use it in person. So it is very similar to what I'm teaching and I'm showing you. I'm going to walk you through the modules and Brightspace. And Erin actually asked us to highlight different things that we think is important in our class in the format of the course. So I think what makes this format and this design workable and highlights what I did is, since I'm a designer and an artist, I really try to make my module and the Brightspace site visually appealing to my students. So I designed it as a graphic designer. I try to have a strong organization structure there. So the structure is clear to my students so they can follow it every time with each module. Expectations are clear, and I try to give clear instructions, the details, how to locate the course information and documents and links, which I will show you. And I try to be inclusive in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and give my students a sense of belonging when they join the class. And again, it was really important for me to have the course accessible to all my students and using multimedia to support what I'm doing. So I'm gonna try to share my screen with you. Can you all see my screen? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. As you all know, we all work in Brightspace, and different modules that I have for my class starts with a welcome. Then I have the information, everything that is related to the class, the syllabus, the policies, and the rubric. So anything that they need to refer to, go back to, they can go back to. Welcome is usually something that I send at the beginning before the class starts, and they will read what I expect and how the first class starts. Then I also have all of these modules that I created. So 12 modules of teaching, and then I have, if we have a guest artist, that's all the information that goes there. The conclusion module is really wrapping it up and putting everything into context and doing discussions. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just open one of these modules and walk you through it. So we'll have an overview. Then each of these sections, I have terms for students to study. So this always is the same. And basically these are the terms that will be used for the exams. So midterm exam and final exam. My PowerPoints are here as well. So these will be their study guides. So any of those terms that I have in the study terms module, they can find all the answers here. And for this specific class, usually my slides start with a historical background of like past practices. And then at the end, we look into contemporary artists. My additional resources would be all the links that I'm providing my students, the films that are related to my lecture. These are like the contemporary artists that I introduced to them. And if there are any articles, I also included in there. The discussion is also here. So we all know that you can always go to the discussions on the top menu, but just to make it easier for my students, I created all of these different components in one module. So they don't have to go from a different one point to the other point. They can just go right to discussions, also to their assignments. So each week, groups of students have to present different artists. So I thought that this was, I didn't do it before I was starting, I designed this online. But then when we talked, when we were developing the course, it just made more sense to have everything in one place. So instead of going to different menus, the students can just get into the module and have all the information that they need. So that's basically it. I think because I didn't test it online yet, and I hope that I will be doing it soon, there are some components that I cannot give you the feedback about the online format, but that's basically like exactly the same thing that I do in person with my students. So if I don't know if you have any questions I can answer or.
Thank you so much. I know when you and I were first talking, I asked about your face-to-face students using this, and you were talking about that they do use these modules in Brightspace as well in your face-to-face course. So I'm curious if you had any feedback from your face-to-face students about your organization or anything in your course.
Yeah, they actually like it that it follows the same format. They like it that they can always go to one module and find everything as well. I mean, I'm always careful. I really want it to be organized so it's not confusing students. And one reason that I have different graphics for different modules is exactly that, because I see like some courses, the graphics for each module is repeated over and over. So it's just giving my students visual clues that, oh, I'm looking for art of Mesopotamia. That's the picture for it. So they go right to it. So it just visually it's giving them clues to get to the information faster.
And your visuals are reinforcing the content that's in the module. So that's helpful for them to be making those connections.
Exactly.
Nice.
Thank you.
I do really like your module structure with everything being in one place and not having to hop out to, the discussion feature separately, and very streamlined for students to follow.
Yes. Yeah.
Just wondering before we move on to the next course, if anyone has any questions, you can feel free to unmute yourself. You can type in the chat. And also, if you have any similar experiences with course structure, some of you may teach online, actually. All right. Well, Dr. Keyghobadi will be here with us for the rest of the session. So if you do think of something, feel free to type it in the chat and she'll be able to respond to you there. So thank you for sharing your course.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. So our second presenter today is Dr. Brianna Gonzalez, who is an assistant professor at Farmingdale State College, where she teaches courses in psychology, biopsychology, and research methods. She holds a doctoral degree in integrative neuroscience from Stony Brook University, as well as an MA in psychology from Stony Brook. She earned her undergraduate degree in behavioral and cognitive neuroscience from the University of Florida. Dr. Gonzalez is a passionate and highly motivated educator and research scientist with expertise in psychology, neuroscience, epigenetics, and science communication. So thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you all. Thank you so much for inviting me to share my course with you today. I am also coming from Farmingdale State College, so I have a kind of similar setup as Roshanak, but I don't have as pretty pictures for the module. I think I'm going to have to adopt that in my next rerun of my courses. So the class that I'm going to share with you today is Intro to Biopsychology. Let me pull that up now. So the course that I'm showing you the layout for is a fully asynchronous course. And you can all see that, correct? Yes, great. So this is for my fully asynchronous course, which means that we do not meet in person at all. I also teach this fully face-to-face and also a hybrid section that I'm preparing actually for the future, where I will use a lot of what I have here and we'll do a lot more discussion in person. But I've had some really great feedback from students who have taken the online course. The main thing that they have said is that they really appreciate how organized and clear and consistent everything is. So I do attribute a lot of that to the Farmingdale distance learning team, who has helped set up a really good kind of like course shell for us to use as like a template. And then I have edited that. But some things that help with keeping the consistency, I have every module here laid out with the title of each topic that we're covering that week. So this is a week by week type of situation, and we have 15 modules in total. I also really like to show instructor presence from the beginning. So I have a welcome video here that I highlight the whole course of how to navigate it, where to find everything that they need, introduce them to myself so they can get to know a little bit about me before I ask them about themselves. We all know that that's more of like the icebreaker activities that I have. So I have an introduction so that everyone can introduce themselves and share something that they're most excited and interested in learning in the course. I also tie it directly to biopsychology. So I start with asking them on a question on why studying the brain is important and how it can help us understand human behavior. And then just an icebreaker quiz that's more of like a syllabus activity and making sure that they understand how to complete this quizzes in Brightspace. So like I said, the consistency, every module looks the same. So I have a module 1 overview, module overview for each module, and it shares exactly what they will need to complete that week. So the template is the same, very clear. We start with the learning outcomes, the activities that they will complete that week. I always have the chapter readings listed. I have lectures in every module that I have created and recorded. I used Panopto, which was really easy to use, and also students can use that for recording their own presentation. So that's a cool thing to connect in Brightspace. I also have in every module additional resource folder where I have TED Talks or some just YouTube videos that I have found that really reinforce what they're learning in this module. And a hack to get around the ads and everything on YouTube is if you embed the code into Brightspace, it makes it such a smoother transition and you can skip all of the ads. I also have discussions in every week. I think it's really important for the students to get to know each other and share their thoughts on what they've learned throughout the week. As this is, again, we're not meeting face to face. So this is really important for students to feel like they are still part of a class, that they're still able to share what their main takeaways are from the class and connect with the students and the instructors. So I have also a breakdown of the assessments. This is what they need to complete each week, and then the due dates. Something that I have implemented now is making the discussions a 2-part assignment, where first they have a deadline some classes I set it for Wednesday, others I set it for Friday, depending on the students' feedback of their schedules and everything. But that first initial discussion post should be available early on in the week so that their peers can have the chance to read and respond to it. So their initial post is due early on, and then their reply to 2 peers is due by Sunday. And they're also expected to reply to anyone who's responding to them. If I go back to the module, we can see that after the overview, they can go to lecture notes, which I have as a Word doc. I'll open that. This is for each chapter, and it's kind of like an outline that they can use as they go through the reading and also the video. So this is coming directly from the content, and it's very brief, but it is a Word doc again, so they can download it and type their own notes or print it out and type and handwrite what they think is most important takeaways from there. Let me screen. Okay. And then after the lecture notes, I do have PowerPoints for each of the lecture videos that I have recorded. So that is accessible to everyone. And the video lectures for each module do vary depending on how much is needed to cover in this particular topic. Right now, they are a little bit longer than I would like. So this one, I believe, they're around like 30 to 45 minutes on average, but I do want to, after learning more pedagogy tips and research, I am trying to shorten that down a bit. So I'm hoping to revamp the video lectures to be around like 5 to 10 minutes for little bite-sized lectures. Let me just show you the additional resources. So again, this is some videos, readings, anything extra beyond the textbook and my lecture. But students really love the additional resources because they're interesting. So I have this really cool video after just learning about the cool neuroscience methods that we use, one of them being deep brain stimulation. This patient who is a violinist is getting deep brain stimulation surgery to help him after being diagnosed with Parkinson's. A human brain, like actually seeing how does an MRI machine work. So things that they are learning about in the class, but just for them to go a little bit deeper, this is really admired by a lot of students. And the last thing is that there'll be a brief quiz. So every week, so discussion and quiz every week. So the chapter quiz, there's 20 multiple choice questions. And another thing I want to point out is that this course and all of my courses, I really try to have a lot of low stakes assignments. So the chapter quizzes are low stakes, just 5 points. Discussions I usually have for 10 points. And the exams are larger. Another thing that students really like, I'll just show you one. In some chapters in some modules, I have assignments like this mouse party activity, which is one of the students' favorites. This is an interactive game. I have a lot of interactive computer demo games. This one is teaching students how different drugs affect the brain by allowing them to reach into a glass container full of lab mice who are undergoing these effects of various drugs to test them, and you get to look inside their brain and see all of the neurochemical changes, what's happening one by one. And there's also a worksheet that pairs with this activity. So as they're walking through this fun game, they can take notes and submit it as, again, another low stakes assignment. But just really interacting with the material more than just taking a quiz or doing that brief discussion. So I have exams. I usually have 4 exams per course, and then the exam here is 25 points. And another thing to highlight, the discussion questions for this course. So it's biopsychology. This is taken mostly by psychology students, but also by bioscience, medical, pre-med, pre-health students. I want them to learn also about bioethics, and with all of the new technology and information that we have, just what are we going to do with all of that information? So for example, in this module on psychopharmacology, with further advances in understanding of the human genome, we're actually now able to identify individuals with higher vulnerability to addiction to particular drugs. What ethical issues would would society face, and what policies would students recommend to help this type of advancement in technology and society? I also have, let me see, I think it is in here, some other like demos, favorite illusion discussion. The students really enjoy this. So they are learning about the visual system and how everything we see is not actually as it is. So we were talking about illusions, and this was a famous one in 2015 that a lot of students still know. Not everyone does, but if they don't have a favorite illusion, I give them a link to find a new favorite that they might discover. So I guess all of this to say, the major highlights that I have gotten from feedback from students is just the organization and consistency, how every single module has the overview with exactly what they're looking for. And just fun activities and videos to apply what they're learning. And again, like the discussions helping them understand how to apply this in the real world and take what they're learning in class and apply it. Like psychology is one of those core subjects that really lends itself to being known and seen everywhere throughout life. So that's kind of my goal with this course and all of my other ones. But yeah, any questions?
Thank you so much. I see. Oh, yep, we have one question. Go ahead, Maria.
So I have a question about the additional videos that you include. When you put them there, are the students directed to those videos at any point? Like during your lecture, do you say, "Hey, we've just talked about this. There is a link in in our Brightspace page that you should go and look at this video here," or is it just there and available to them, and you're just hoping they look at it?
I do reference many of them, but not all of them. So for example, this here, really important. So we're talking in module 2, functional neuroanatomy. As I'm talking through the whole brain, I'm like, okay, this is a lot of information. It's best if you can just explore on your own. And I actually have a great resource for you, the Atlas of Functional Neuroanatomy. There is a bunch of pictures. You can see real human brains and look at the different systems. So I do reference a lot, not all of them though, because I do have a bunch here. But definitely the most important that I think the most impactful I would mention in the lectures.
Thank you.
and also in the announcement. So I send an announcement at least once a week. At the start of the week, I will share again the highlights of what the topic is, the fun activities, like everyone loves Mouse Party. I hope you enjoy it too. Let me know if you have any questions.
I do see some other questions in the chat, well, in some conversation as well. I see Alex is putting in some links, so that's also helpful. I was going to ask about that. There's a question and some comments about the module structure and what is the recommendation. Someone had heard 5 to 9, and then also the organization by weeks, that sort of thing. So there are a lot of references that Alex is sharing. Alex, did you want to talk about it a little bit?
Sure. You can chunk a course up into all different ways. And I think the reference to the magic number being 7 plus or minus 2 comes from very early research we did with fully online courses, and lots and lots and lots of them, like thousands of online courses, tens of thousands of students. And we found a positive and significant correlation between the reported learning and satisfaction for both faculty and students with the numbers of modules. And so over 9, the satisfaction and perception of learning would go down, and under 5, the same would happen. And so our recommendation, while correlation is not causation, there's something to this, and what we found was that it presents some cognitive overload for the learners when they are faced with, let's say, modules that are based on a textbook, and there's 35 chapters in the textbook, and you have just like this long stream of modules in the course. It's too much information to be effective in terms of presenting advanced organizers for the learners. Now, that is recommended, our recommendation for fully online courses. When you're talking about courses that are blended, or that have synchronous components, or that are synchronous, and the week is important, then obviously the recommendation is using the time, which is critical to being able to participate well in the course, as an organizing structure for the content of the course. If you have 35 units in your textbook and you still want to organize your course in that way, there's nothing to prevent you, or even weekly structure. You would just have an organizing structure above that. So you would create a unit that would have 2 weeks within it, or a unit that would have a module, let's say, that would have 5 of your chapters of your book in it, rather than just laying them all out there out front. So there's ways to chunk the course to take advantage of the labels of the modules, so that you can use them to convey instructional or content-related information to the learners, so that at a glance, when they look at the table of contents, let's say, of your course, or the front structure of your course, that they're seeing, module 1 and then a topic, and then within the module, it could be further broken down either into additional units, or into the actual content that you are either presenting, or the activities, or whatever you have within the modules. So hopefully that helped to give you some understanding of that recommendation. Of course, someone mentioned, I think, in there that they had some campus policy about that, and you'll actually see that, and it might be Farmingdale actually, because there are some campuses that have some prescribed recommendations for their faculty. And I saw Brianna nodding your head, so it may be Farmingdale. I remember working with you all on your courses, and if it's a union issue, or if it's something that your institution has determined is necessary for whatever reason, then of course you go with that. I'd still argue with whoever wants to talk about it. about the importance of really using the titles of things and the module titles and the numbers of modules as a way to convey instructional information, and to using that magic number of 7 plus or minus 2 as your guide. But of course, you need to work within the context that you have, and faculty are free to chunk their courses however they like, and so we give our recommendations and we try to put scholarly work behind that. It's not just me saying it. We've actually observed this phenomenon, and I put the citation of the paper in there. We were really fortunate in the early days, for like a 10, 15 years, to be able to collect huge amounts of data from huge numbers of faculty and students, and to learn, a lot from those early investigations. And so, yeah, if you're interested in any research, or in talking about this further, I'm happy to chat. What else, Erin, was there? Were there other questions in there for either me or for Brianna or for Roshanak?
I did not see any, but that doesn't mean there aren't. Feel free, if you have a question, to join us in this conversation. I did post a wrap-up question just to kind of get some thoughts about the impression that you had from these presentations. If you have some sort of takeaway, something that was either reinforced for you or maybe you want to do in your course. I know Brianna mentioned learning something from Roshanak, right? So it's always nice to see things in other people's courses. For me, I think that it was just reinforced for me from your students' feedback from these two courses that students appreciate consistency and organization. So regardless of how you're structuring your modules and so forth, that is super important and highly valued by our students. Any other thoughts from the group? Well, I want to be sure to give a huge thank you to Brandy So, the Director of Distance Learning at SUNY Farmingdale, for nominating these two courses. We're just super excited to have Farmingdale represented in this program.
Sarah has a question.
Great.
No, I'm sorry. I was just trying to give a
Oh.
thumbs up, but I hit the wrong button.
We like thumbs up too. That's great.
Erin, do you want me to show the DLE templates?
Yeah, we were going to do that as part of our closing. Sure.
Yeah.
Do
All
that.
right, I'm going to share my screen and just let you know that these templates were created by a team of 50 plus instructional designers, faculty, librarians, directors of online from across SUNY, and they are Oscar infused templates, or Oscar aligned templates, actually, for any type of modality. And so if by chance you are interested in seeing them or exploring them, I'd recommend that you talk, if you're faculty, talk with your instructional designer. But these are available really for anyone. They're freely available and openly licensed, so you can just come to the Google Drive and look at and download any one of these. I'm going to open up the asynchronous one, since that's really what we're talking about here. And you'll see here there's a zip file that's for Brightspace. And then you'll also see this IMSCC common cartridge file for anyone who's using some other learning management system other than Brightspace. And then there's some documentation that goes with each template. We have a document that describes the alignment between every element in the template and Oscar. And if you're not familiar with Oscar, it's our online course quality rubric. And so you'll see that every standard in Oscar has an associated element in the template, and then it'll say whether or not it's present in the template and where precisely it is, and then some notes about it. And as you scroll down, you'll notice that there's some that are yellow in color and some that are red. And so those just indicate where they are either placeholders or where the element requires some manual action, like we might have a placeholder for a discussion, but the instructor has to go in there and create their discussion, right? So the template is just a shell of a course that has some structure and placeholder documents, and I'll show it to you in a sec. This is the overview, so you can see essentially the table of contents of the course. So when you can't really tell from the zip file if you don't actually import it into anything, you can't really tell what the course would look like. So this guide gives you the table of contents of what's in the shell, and then it gives you some pictures so that you can sort of visualize what it looks like. So this is the course homepage, what it would look like, how it's intended to look, and then this is the sort of table of contents view of the course and what it's intended to look like. I can show it to you. This is it in real life. So again, this is in Brightspace, and you see that it starts with a widget for announcements. It's a collapsed widget, so it doesn't take up too much space. There's a profile for the instructor. We've chosen the visual table of contents for the visual appeal of that. And then there's an activity feed and a calendar and bookmarks, which are based on individual input, those bookmarks. So any individual can decide what they want to bookmark in a course. And if we go into the course itself, you'll see that there are along the left is the table of contents, and there's a welcome and start here section. And these documents that are here are placeholder documents, but they're designed with features and functionality in Brightspace that then can be adapted or customized. So if you don't like that graphic, you can change it. We're infusing some suggestions and best practices into the template. So if you we recommend that you add a video to your course welcome and so forth. And so each of the documents in this area are ready to be filled out or adapted or deleted if you don't like it or don't want it or don't need it for whatever reason. And so the next section after the welcome start here is the readiness section. And so if you already have a place where your online students go that is created by your institution, and you don't want to duplicate or confuse any efforts, you would just simply delete this section of the template, and then continue following the various areas, which includes an area for course information that starts out with a syllabus. We have a templated syllabus that we created for this process that is also Oscar infused. So you can take that and use it as a model, or you can just check, you can actually adapt it. You can take a copy of it and adapt it for your own syllabus, or just check your own syllabus against the elements that are in this template. And then course information and objectives. We're trying to demonstrate, effective practices. They're all Oscar aligned. There's two options to present your schedule, and one is in a table and one is linear. And so you would just use one of those, not both. And so you can think of these templates as containing everything in the kitchen sink. These would need to be first adapted by the institution, and then generated for faculty to then go in and customize to themselves. But down here there's a space for a logo that would be Farmingdale, for example, or whatever your institution is. And the institution would need to make certain determinations, perhaps about where certain things are and what things are in there that they want to have consistent and systematic across all courses, and then the things that are open for the faculty or the program or the department to customize. So, for example, this document about netiquette, we found a really nice video about discussion board netiquette and some tips. Obviously, if you have your own, or if that's taken care of elsewhere, you could simply delete this document. The important bit is that helping students to understand your expectations regarding conduct is important. And so it doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it this way, but it's pointing to the need for it to be done in some way. And then technical requirements of the course, obviously that would need to be customized. How the course is organized, this is just in general, but also probably would need to be customized depending on how the course is organized. These policies and so forth might be taken care of elsewhere in the distance learning environment, web environment for the learners, either at the departmental level, the program level, or the institutional level. And if that's the case, you just delete this. But it is important that learners understand how they can comply with the various policies, either that you as an individual instructor have, or that your program or institution have. And so if you have those elsewhere, you could just take these out, or if there's something specific to you or to your course, you could add those. Having office hours, of course, is a best practice, and you might do that in a variety of ways. You might do that synchronously as an option, or you might have it an asynchronous private space that you have for your students to interact with you. Having a section that helps to establish a sense of class community is also a good practice. And, so we have it populated with an ask a question area and with a talk with the professor area and a student lounge. Of course, if you want to change the labels of these or the instructions or delete any of them in favor of something else, it's a template, so you can do that. Asking a question, this is the same exact space that is over here, but it's in the table of contents specifically so that anywhere a student is in the course, they can see that link and can ask a question. They know how to get help with all of the different mechanisms and resources for help. And then we have identified some preview activities here, such as an icebreaker, which again would need to be customized. We have some optional type activities, the learner survey, welcome survey, the course syllabus survey that I think Brianna mentioned that she does. This is a similar activity probably. And then the academic integrity quiz is another thing that some people might like to have to make sure that every student who goes through the course has gone through and answered the question that, yes, I have read this academic integrity policy. And then that's that only question in that quiz. And there's a link to the policy, and then they have to click yes. And then you have a documented record from every student in the class that they have been exposed to that policy. And then we have one module kind of fleshed out, and it's got the overview that then would need to be customized by the instructor, and it then has some space for content presentation and an open space for discussion that would need to be designed, and this one too by the instructor, and then potentially a quiz if there is one. And so it's just a simple, straightforward, task-based instructional structure to a module. And we've only done that with the first module. All the rest of the intention is that you would design your first module and then duplicate that structure for subsequent modules. And you'll see that there are actually 16 modules in the template, because we know that folks at Farmingdale use more than 9 modules. And also this might be used or adapted for modalities where the time or the week would be important. And so we pre-populated it with with that number of modules. And if you don't use 16, you would simply delete the ones that you're not using. And so that's in a nutshell the courses for the DLE templates, if you're interested in them. And then kind of to wrap things up, if you are interested in nominating a course for observation, I think Erin can pop the link. If you're an instructional designer and interested in nominating one of your courses for observation, we have the link for that. Erin, were there any questions while I was jabbering away?
No, there were no additional. Well, there was one about what a common cartridge was, and so I answered that. But
Oh, great, great. So I just want to say that for those of you who are not in the SUNY DLE, this session has been recorded and it will be available to you on our YouTube channel for you to review. And all of the showcases that we did, that, you know, this one and the one we did last semester and the next one that we will do, we will post for anyone really to review the webinar recording in our YouTube channel. We do invite those of you who are within our SUNY DLE to explore these courses, and we want you to draw inspiration, as I mentioned earlier, and to share what you learn with others, both in your own course and with others on your campus. And again, as I mentioned, if you're an instructional designer, these courses that were nominated, and Erin mentioned it was Brandy So from Farmingdale that nominated the courses from Farmingdale. We want to encourage you, if you're an instructional designer, to nominate a course from your own institution, or if you want to learn more about the process, you can either contact me or Erin, or on our website, we have details about the program. And I'd like you to come back to the showcase that we do next semester. We're going to have a couple of the other courses that we'll showcase, and take a look at the recordings if you don't have a chance to come to the webinar itself. And I guess then, just in general, we're happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'm really happy that you joined us, and I want to thank the faculty and the instructional designers who make this program possible. And it's a labor of love. It's a lot of work to prep these courses for observation, as the faculty can attest. We want to thank everyone who made the program possible. All of our work collectively strengthens our culture of quality and innovation and collaboration, and I think that's what defines SUNY Online. So thank you all very, very much.
thanks, Alex, and thank you to both of our presenters and to everyone who attended today. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.